Hey, everybody, this is TJR.
And this is Robert Kinsler.
And Robert, good to have you back, buddy.
Yeah. Hey, good to see you, TJ. Been a while.
People have been asking about you. When's Robert going to join? I said, I'm open anytime he is. And let's discuss what we're going to discuss today. This kind of started because we had a conversation a few weeks ago. We hadn't talked in a while. We had a phone conversation, and we both were kind of waxing philosophical on our ever growing mortality.
Exactly.
That when you get to our age, you start to really take a hard look at. And at that same time, you started talking about all the great classic rock artists that are facing lots of issues, medically speaking.
Right.
And
exactly.
Yeah, and I think there were certain ones you brought up, like
right. Yeah, I mean in the list we're talking about some pretty well-known names here: mm-hmm. Bruce Springsteen, Ringo Starr, Rod Argent of the Zombies, mm-hmm. J.D. Souther, mm-hmm. Dave Mason of Traffic fame, mm-hmm. Larry Mullen Jr., who's a name you reminded me in the mix, and obviously Jeff Lynne of Electric Light Orchestra were all names that we, I think, talked about.
Yeah, I mentioned, that Michael Nolan on his channel a while back, I mentioned to you at that time that he had done a video on this topic himself about, he talked about Bruce Springsteen, having to cancel and because of medical issues. And he had said, is touring killing our rock stars?
Yeah.
And, certainly as you get older, you start facing medical issues. But when you think about this, I can trace this all the way back to Elvis. Because when you think about it, Elvis, he got addicted to prescription medication. He had to have medications to wake him up. He had to have medications to put him to sleep. And it just escalated. At first, it was just a little, then more, and then the medications got stronger and stronger. And we see that this happened with Prince, mm-hmm. his death. No one knew. But apparently, he was needing medications just to keep him functioning.
Right. And I think we talked about, too, TJ, back when I was writing for the Orange County Register, I covered one of Tom Petty's final shows. It was third to his last show, and apparently came out after he passed away about a month or so after that. It came out after that he had, and I don't recall exactly right now, but he had broken a bone or cracked a rib or something like that. And he was playing with, while he was on some pretty serious pain medicines. And when I saw him on stage, he looked phenomenal, but he must have been on some really heavy stuff to allow him to play at that level, play with his guitar, rock out with the band. I mean, it's really heartbreaking when you think some of these guys, what they're having to do to keep going at this level at their age.
And some might argue, well, sure, they're needing these medications to keep them going, but that's not the touring that's killing them. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. But the thing is touring is, first of all, it's physically difficult. I only have a limited experience with touring in that I did try to attempt to do some traveling to other states and even outside the country where I played shows. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And I want to stress, very limited experience, but it was not easy.
Right.
I was a lot younger, a lot healthier, and it was still like, wow, this must be hard. This must be really hard if you to keep doing this all the time. And the thing is with touring comes responsibilities. Now, like for instance, Michael Nolan in his video talked about the allure of all the money, and I'm not discounting that aspect of it because that can play into it, the allure of money, depending on what some people, of course, we think about them like Paul McCartney. I'm sure he has no money problems.
Yeah,
he's not doing it.
I would second that opinion.
I'm sure he's got no money problems. He obviously wants to tour.
Right.
Obviously, it fulfills his life. And that's true too for a lot of artists. It's fulfilling. But he also, from what I've understood, I know you've interviewed his guitarist Rusty, who
Rusty Anderson.
Who has said that McCartney will he'll play, he'll take a little time off to rest his voice, he'll play, there'll be periods of breaks between dates and things like that to kind of help
exactly
pace himself so he's not having such a hard time. But there are responsibilities when you tour. A lot of people rely on you for their living when you're touring.
That's exactly true, and I'm sure that's a large part of it. Or I think in the case like and I know you're the one that reminded me about Larry when you two did that residency in Vegas, that he had to take some time off for surgery. So I recall, TJ. So, but and I remember we may have even discussed it video, or maybe it was.
We talked about there was some backlash. Some people were angry that they did this without him. I think I was personally like, he gave them their blessing to do it.
Right.
So to me, there's no reason for outrage over this.
And I think, but like getting back to your point, I think maybe they felt some responsibility, either contractually or maybe it was to their crew or the, like you said, this network that they support. Is YouTube so successful? So I think there's a lot of truth in what you're saying.
Agreements to do that residency happened years prior. Planning for that, agreements to do it, contracts being signed, all of that was well in advance of Larry having to make this decision. I've got to have these surgeries if I have any chance to keep doing shows with the band. I've got to do this, and he had to take time off to do that, and that conflicted with the residency. So the solution was, we'll get a fill-in drummer in the meantime, and Larry, you come back when you're ready. Right. There's always that possibility, and you've got to always think of these things, that there could be the chance that he might not be able to come back. That's always a possibility, because surgeries are never 100% successful. They're never guaranteed. They don't come with a guarantee,
they definitely don't.
Doctors just do their best, and we all kind of cross our fingers and hope everything works. But that's the thing. There are responsibilities to this, and this is another reason why I think some people get addicted on the road to painkillers, to prescription drugs, and then of course some people medicate themselves, with as Michael put it, the nose candy, and other things like that. But even from my own experience, when I was playing 4 to 5 nights a week, playing lots of cover gigs and my own original stuff, I became very concerned about getting sick and not being able to sing, because I had to vocally carry every single gig. Those gigs were sometimes 3 to 4 hours in length, 3 to 4 45-minute sets. I would get very concerned, like, if something happens to me, we could even lose the gig. Because you can't call off sick.
No, you can't.
It's not like a day job where you get sick days. You can't call off sick. And so I'd get very concerned about that sometimes. I'd sometimes come in with a horrible case of the flu, and it's like, well, I got to do this. And, and I had to handle all the vocals because no one else could sing. And I began to get paranoid and even hypochondriac. And I can see where people can start to get addicted to medications. And so it's like, I've never toured at that level. Right. I have, on some smaller level, dealt with these things. And the thing is like, the other guys in the band are counting on me. And it's like I said, if I don't play this gig, we could lose it. This paying gig that we have that they book us maybe once or twice a month, we could lose it. They could say, well, fine, we'll get someone else. We'll just get someone else. That's it. That it can be that hard. It can be, there can be little or no understanding for the fact that you're sick. So you think about these tours with these huge contractual obligations involved, and you can see where, this can happen. We should probably talk about people like Dick Dale.
Right. I'll definitely talk about Dick Dale.
Who died pretty much on the road, who had serious medical issues, and who said in interviews, I have to keep touring so I can afford my medical bills. He was caught in this horrible loop.
Yeah. And I recall reading some of those same articles you're talking about. I mean, that's really sad when you think about somebody as groundbreaking as Dick Dale having to do that. And I believe he lived well into his 80s, as I recall. I might be wrong there, but I think he was not a young man when he was having to continue that kind of schedule of performances.
He had serious medical issues. He should not have been on the road, but it was the only way he could take care of his medical bills. It was all he could do. was just to keep playing shows.
Yeah,
and
amazing.
he died on the road basically. And yeah, I mean, it's like if ever there was an argument for or a need for some kind of national health care, not to get political, but medicine shouldn't be political. But yeah, if
TJ, I wanted to say on a related note, you just prompted a memory of mine. Back when I interviewed the lead singer of The Fix, and I hopefully I'm pronouncing his name right, it's Cy Cernan. He told me that because of the nature of how things have changed with radio and also with physical CD sales and album sales and this and that the band really was making no money anymore from its recordings. So they were forced into a position of having to do a pretty serious touring schedule for a living. Now, The Fix is not at a level like a Paul McCartney or a Ringo Starr or a Bruce Springsteen, where they probably have that kind of record sales to make a really good living and stuff. So they had to go out, play festivals, I saw them at the Coach House in San Juan Capistrano. So they were being forced in that kind of situation. So that's a band where maybe they will, when they're a little bit older, they may continue to have to roll out there playing these gigs, even when they don't feel up to it, whether because of vocal problems or they just don't feel well. Somebody in the band may not be up to it. But yeah, it is kind of sad when you really think about it, what the pressure that's on these musicians.
Yeah, and the same holds true. The same holds true. Sorry, for a lot of oldies acts. There were a lot of older, what we might refer to as oldies acts, soul and R&B and Motown acts that also, because they couldn't get royalties from radio airplay, touring was their only option.
That was their only option. Yeah.
Yeah, to keep earning a living. Yeah. I mean, unless they want to, I don't know, go, work at Walmart, which is not a good option either.
No, not a great, because then you're on your feet all day if you're the greeter,
Yeah.
So you don't want to be doing that.
Yeah. So it's but yeah, it's like and that was because there was this whole, and I don't even know if the laws ever changed as to how because radio didn't have to pay royalties to artists, terrestrial radio, and we're one of the few countries in the world that doesn't do that.
Okay.
And, whereas other developed countries do. But at any rate, so that was another aspect to that. But yeah, this brings me to want to talk about Billy Joel, who, from the best I could see, is not suffering any really serious health issues. But he has not toured, but he found this alternative where he did a residency at Madison Square Garden, which just recently completed a while back, but he did this for a long time.
Right.
And, that's got to be a sweet deal at his age. That would be impossible to turn down if it was me, because you're in one place. You let the people come. You let the audience come to you.
Right.
And you can sleep in the same bed every night.
Right. That's
and
I think really great, because like coming back to it, when I recently interviewed a member of Styx, he said sometimes they're so tired, even though they have a hotel room, TJ. Sometimes if they're kind of just pass out in the bus, they'll stay there because you're just going from tour to tour date, city to city. So I can see why a residency in Vegas or at Madison Square Garden or whatnot, that must be great. That must be a sweet deal for these guys.
Yeah, which I think Styx is going to do a residency. Well,
they're going to do a residency in early 2025 in Vegas, and they've done it before. But that has to be great, because then they're, like you said, at least for a week or two, they can sleep in the same bed.
For how long? They just it's right there in the same hotel as the casino. Yeah, and they probably get a nice suite.
Yeah,
and it's it's got to be a lot easier.
A lot easier than being on the road, and then you roll into town at 2-3 in the morning. Then you wake up when you're kind of on the bus, go in, and then you maybe sleep a few hours before you get ready for the show, or have to get something. Yeah, so I can see as some of these artists get a little bit older, and if they do have that freedom where they're popular enough to have a residency, why not? That does make sense.
It's one thing in the 20s. Yeah,
and then fans can go, hey, let's take a fun vacation to New York / Vegas. Whatever. Exactly, and then we can really. So it's nice maybe for the artists if people will come to them.
Yeah. When you're in your 20s, that's one thing. Or even in your 30s, that's another thing.
Yeah.
When I tried to do that little bit of touring, it was in my 40s. Basically, I think I was around my 40s. Still, like I said, I can definitely feel the difference then and now.
Yeah. Oh, I can.
As far as how I am physically. I remember in my 50s, I went back to swimming. I'd been swimming in my 20s, and it was not difficult for me to swim laps for 20 minutes straight. But in my 50s, it was harder, you know? But yeah. So I can see where, the residency is good for a lot of people. But yeah, I can see where the responsibilities of touring forces people to use medications in ways they probably shouldn't, that can be unhealthy, that can lead to health issues. And I can also see where just the grueling, that's physically more grueling for people, and that can complicate health issues. Mm-hmm. And it's a real serious thing, I think. And I look at Elton John, who took it upon himself to say, I'm not retiring from music, because he's still doing music. I'm just retiring from touring. Mm-hmm. And he did a big, farewell tour. It got canceled by COVID for a while. He resumed it, he came back, he finished it. And I think he means it, and I know he loves performing. And if you've ever read his biography, he talks about how all the times when he was on the road in his later years, and he'd get physically ill.
Yeah.
He'd suffer from maybe one thing or another, yet he'd still get up there and play.
Yeah.
And he said the reason why he did this was because I could either be sitting in a hotel room sick, or I could be up on stage playing sick. I choose to be on stage playing.
That actually makes sense to me. I hadn't thought about it until you brought that up, but that does make a lot of sense. As long as you can't, if you're at a point where you just physically can't move or something, that's one thing. But if you're just kind of like, I don't feel that well, you know what? You can not feel that well while you're performing too. And I'll never forget this. I saw U2 perform once in upstate New York, and Bono had no voice, and he all but told the crowd. The whole crowd kind of picked him up and did the singing. He was still his characteristic signature, energetic self. But yeah, some of these guys do soldier on, So yeah, very, very. That's very interesting about Elton John, though.
Basically he said, I'd rather feel the energy of the crowd. That's at least going to like kind of adrenalize me. He said, the energy of the crowd, the audience reaction. And I get that. Having performed in front of people, there is an energy to that. And I can't think of his name at the moment. A Metallica lead singer. I don't know why I can't think of his name at this second. Any other time I could think of it, but I can't think of it right at this moment. Hetfield. There we go. James Hetfield. It just popped into my head. James Hetfield once said, during music, when I'm playing, there's no physical pain. Pain goes away. And I'm sure, like, he's in his 50s now. He probably deals with certain physical, ailments. There was that time he burned his arm, and he may still feel physical pain from that.
Yeah.
To this day, we have no idea. But I remember he just made a comment. Yeah, when I'm playing music, pain goes away. Stress goes away. And I understand that, because you enter a zone.
Yeah.
So I can see where it is beneficial too. But the physicality and the responsibilities can drive you to abuse prescription drugs, to abuse illegal drugs, in order to keep going, and just the grueling physical aspect of it can complicate medical issues. And so it is a serious issue. Everybody's different. Some people are better suited to touring, both emotionally and physically. Look at Brian Wilson. He clearly was not suited to touring very early on, and had a nervous breakdown over it.
Right.
So he was clearly not at a young age. Whereas, I think it was Mike Love who said, I was great with touring. Yeah. I loved it. Yeah,
and he's
emotionally different people.
Yeah, he's very impressive. I saw him just last year, and he looked great. He pretty much like when I first saw him back in the 1980s. He just goes out there and seems to have a good time and seems very relaxed, So you're right. Just certain people, their personality, their physicality, just everything about them, they're maybe more ideally suited for it than other artists. Yeah.
And just the makeup in there, just whatever makes up their head, and we're all different that way. Exactly. Yeah. Some people are just different about it in different ways. I look at Larry Mullen and I think about Phil Collins. And I have to think at some point maybe he saw Phil Collins and look, I've got to try to keep from ending up this way, so I got to get these surgeries. And there's the possibility, that he may be able to return with them for maybe albums and maybe limited touring. And if U2 wants to keep touring, they may have to, we don't know. I mean, the best case scenario is that Larry gets to keep recording with them. He gets to keep touring with them. But I think fans have to adjust their expectations that he may have to say, I can do some of the shows, but I can't do all of them.
Yeah.
I'll just do the albums with the band, but I prefer if they had someone else on the road with them. All these things could happen.
Yeah.
All these things could happen.
Yeah, it's like back when REM, when the drummer Bill Berry had the brain aneurysm, and then he had to leave the band. I think in the subsequent years, I think occasionally he's played here and there, but yeah, I don't think it's a situation where he could ever go out and tour on a serious level. Not that REM is together now, but I think even after that happened, he obviously had to leave, and then REM just used a touring drummer, not a full-time member, to be with them. So, but yeah, I'm hoping the very best for Larry. I mean, after all, he was the guy that got U2 together. So yeah, important part of the band and their legacy for sure.
Yeah. So, anyways, though, but yeah, we just wanted to talk about this and just kind of try to get more into the nuance of this situation. What can happen? Share our own personal experiences. I know you said you talked to someone in Ringo Starr's band who mentioned what they have to do. In fact,
that was actually when I talked to a member of Styx. Actually, TJ, he said that they each member might spend like an hour. This is before the show, and they're doing a full length show. They spend about an hour kind of warming up themselves, getting ready, making sure that right frame of mind. Then as a band, they get together for about another hour. They warm up, and that way, when they get on stage, they always feel like they're firing at 100%. Because when you get older, there might be a challenge where maybe you're a little bit more stiff, you're rusty, maybe you're, all of us, I think, as we've gotten older, I'll speak for myself here, it's easier to get distracted. Maybe you're not as focused. So they have certain things that they do to make sure that they're firing on all cylinders every time they go out on stage. And I've seen them several times, and they are an amazing band live, no doubt about that. So it is interesting to hear how some people, as you get older, maybe you have to adapt a little bit or change your approach.
Oftentimes, when we hear about something like Prince, we say, "Oh, well, he let himself get addicted to painkillers and stuff," and we tend to just be judgmental. "Oh, they've got all this money. If they can't do it, they shouldn't tour." And some people, they probably didn't make Michael Nolan brought this up. He said they probably didn't make as much money, or they spent too much money when they were younger, and they were making the real money, or money was being made, but it wasn't them that was getting it.
Yeah.
Elton John went bankrupt at one point in his life, and I know he got taken advantage of in many respects. He was also extremely generous to people. I know, like he bought he paid for his driver's mortgage.
Wow.
He just did it just because he's just generous to a fault sometimes. And there's all kinds of things going on with the lives of these people. Maybe their mother needs an operation,
Yeah.
and they're the only one that can take care of it. There's always stories behind all of this as to why this happens. And we should always look at these situations when people, like I said, when we, like someone like when Prince dies because he was abusing medications. Well, there's always a lot going on behind that, and we have to, learn to not immediately judge, to try to look behind the sensationalism and look at what might really be going on behind the scenes. And it's not always easy to access that, but I think that's important. And
I'm glad you brought that out. I mean, for us to all have a little bit more compassion and understanding, because none of us know these people really. We
don't.
I've interviewed countless, classic rock heroes myself and stuff, but I can't say I really know them that well, or I'm friends with, you know what I mean? So you don't really know what they're going through and what the background is.
Yeah. You only know what they're willing to tell the general public at large.
Right.
And, we all wear different faces, and like that Billy Joel song, "The Faces of the Stranger." But we all wear different faces. You and I behave a certain way when we're doing these videos versus when we're just talking to each other separately. There are some differences. There are some similarities, but yeah, we do behave.
Cat's out of the bag, there, TJ.
Well, that's just life. That's just life. Like I think you said that. If you go to see these classic rock artists, appreciate it when they're at this time in their lives, because you may not get to see them too much longer. So you never know. The Stones keep going, and at some point they may have to stop. Some people decide, I'm going to bow out now, like Elton John. I'm just not going to tour, but I'll still do music. They all handle it differently, and you have to respect their choices and how they choose to handle this, in my opinion. But anyways, though, at this point, I would say, unless there's anything else you want to say about this.
No, just a great discussion. Yeah. I'm glad we talked about it. And I look forward to hearing what everyone out there, their thoughts on it as well, too. TJ.
We'd like to keep the discussion going and hear what you have to say, especially if you're a musician yourself and you've had any experience touring, no matter what level it may have been on. Just some of your experiences, how you feel about it. What are your thoughts on all of it? At any rate, though, Robert, it has been too long. I know you've been busy. You've got a lot going on, but I hope you'll be able to do more videos with me. No pressure, but folks do miss you here, and I miss being able to just sit and have these conversations with you.
I couldn't agree more. We'll definitely get together soon. That's a promise.
Okay. All right. Well, cool. And let's talk more. But everybody, thank you so much for watching, and be sure to just do all those YouTube things. Like, subscribe, bell notification icon, all that stuff. I do want to say thank you to the Patreon supporters. Patreon supporters do receive exclusive weekly videos not available on this channel. And if you'd like to be a Patreon supporter, go to patreon.com/TJR the original. You can always leave a one-time super thanks for any video, but mostly just click like. That helps a lot tremendously, and it's free. And we'll see you all in the next video. And again, Robert, great to have you back.
Great to see you, TJ, and great to talk music with you.
Same here. Take care, everybody. Bye-bye.